Welcome to the College Recruiter webinar. The subject of today's discussion will be on the 2015 employment market for recent grads and students. My name is Andrea McEwen Henderson, and I will be your host today. I am one of the national account managers with College Recruiter. I have a dozen years of experience in helping large and small employers reach recent college graduates and students. My primary responsibilities are facilitating our webinars, moderating the discussions at our college recruiting bootcamp conferences, as well as working with small to mid-sized employers on their entry-level hiring needs. College Recruiter is the highest traffic college job board with 150,000 unique monthly visitors. We help employers reach recent graduates and students of 1, 2, and 4-year colleges and graduate schools. We have permission to deliver emails on behalf of our employer clients to 7 million recent graduates and 10 million students, and can target them by major, school, year graduation, diversity, and more. Our other solutions for employers include job postings, targeted mobile banner ads, targeted display ads, virtual career fairs, and custom research projects. For more information about College Recruiter, you can reach us at www.collegerecruiter.com/contact or 952-848-2211. Today's guest is Stephen Rothberg, President of College Recruiter. Stephen Rothberg is the President and founder of College Recruiter, the leading niche job board used by recent graduates searching for entry-level jobs and students hunting for internships. Stephen founded the company in 1991 as a publisher of campus maps and employment magazines. Stephen grew up in Winnipeg, Canada, moved south in Minneapolis for the weather, is married to the CEO of College Recruiter, and has 3 young kids and the world's most mellow dog. I'll now turn the webinar over to Stephen.
Hey, thanks, Andrea. Great to be with you. So for today's webinar on the employment market for recent grads and students, I'm going to sort of break it up into 3 different sections. The first one is I want to give a little bit of an overview for context reasons about who I am, what College Recruiter is. I think it'll help the listeners better understand where I'm coming from with a lot of the information that I'll be presenting. I'm going to then talk about the economy, including the recovery from the Great Recession, the 08-09 recession, and really how that's played out, because I think you'll see that there are certain sectors that have recovered very well, and other sectors that are still really hurting. Then I'm going to get into the gut of the presentation, or the guts, and that's going to be the current job market and what I think is going to be happening moving forward, including some really neat things that some of the world's best employers, most progressive employers are doing, which is quite different in the world of university relations than what we would have seen, say, 5 years ago. So first of all, for an overview, as you were saying a few minutes ago, Andrea, yes, I founded the company way back in 1991. We didn't go online until 1996. What we were doing those first 5 years were publishing campus maps of like for the University of Minnesota with ads around the borders, and also employment magazines. The employment magazine was called College Recruiter, and we distributed that for free to hundreds of career service offices around the country, and then they in turn provided those for free to the students using the career service offices. The revenue from the magazines came from employers that paid to advertise their employment opportunities, and the career services and students received them for free. So it's kind of the same business model as our website, as collegerecruiter.com, where the employers pay to advertise their employment opportunities, and the job seekers, the students and recent grads, use it for free. The print publications were profitable, but we ended up shutting them down in the year of 2000 because really we could see that the future of the business was online. We could get an ad up, edited, and inactivated for an employer all within days rather than making them wait for 3 months. One of the things that we're the most proud of is that we've been voted one of the best job boards in the world, one of the 30 best job boards in the world, from 2007 through 2015. We're the only entry-level job board, the only college job board to be named one of the best job boards through that entire time. Weddles is a company owned by Peter Weddle, and he's the executive director of the International Association of Employment Websites, which is the association for the job board and career site industry that we're a part of. We relaunched College Recruiter last fall in October 2014 to make it much faster and to provide us with a much greater ability to get the right content in front of the right users at the right time, including the ability to really dramatically increase the number of job posting ads that we were able to make available to the students and recent grads that use our site. So I think yesterday's number was something like 330,000 internships and entry-level jobs. To us, an entry-level job is anything that requires 0 to 3 years of experience. So what that means is that virtually any job seeker in the U.S. that's looking for an internship or entry-level job is going to find multiple opportunities that are perfectly suited to their interests. We also have well over 30,000 pages of content, articles, ask the experts questions and answers, blogs, videos, and more. Those are great for pulling people into our site because they'll enter keywords at Bing, Google, whatever search engine they might use, and there's a pretty good chance that one of our pages will sort of answer their questions. So they'll read the article, and then hopefully stay on our site, run some searches, apply to jobs which are of interest to them. Our primary products, as you were talking about a few minutes ago, job posting ads, targeted banners. We can deliver banner ads just to say female accounting majors who are in their senior year at any of 18 schools who are racially diverse and military veterans. We can get very, very granular with who sees those ads. Same thing with the emails. Virtual career fairs or virtual career events. If you've ever been to a job fair and you kind of walk around different booths and talk to different recruiters about the employment opportunities that their companies have, we do the same thing. That's one of the products that we offer. It can either be a multi-employer fair where you might have, say, 10 different employers all targeting computer science majors in the San Francisco Bay Area, or it might be an event for just one employer where they have different areas. So they'll have a recruiter from, say, marketing and another recruiter from finance, another recruiter for field sales or something like that, or even just one recruiter answering questions for all the candidates that come. The boot camps, which, Andrea, you know very well, in-person events, we have them multiple times a year across the country. Attendees are all talent acquisition leaders who are primarily or at least partially responsible for the college and university recruiting efforts of their companies. All of the attendees, all of the presenters are those folks, job seekers, vendors, career services. So they're able to really engage in a very frank, open conversation with each other about what they're doing that's working, what they're doing that's not working, and really helping each other. It's great. It really elevates the recruiting community, and it's amazing to see the relationships that are enhanced and even created at these events. And then we do webinars like this, a bunch a week. It's a great way for us to share our knowledge and to help our guests share their knowledge with the job seekers that are using our site, career services, employers, et cetera. Most of our clients, sort of what we're best known for, is really helping the Fortune 1000 and federal government clients, those that recruit dozens, hundreds, thousands of students and recent grads a year. We're really, really good at that sort of scale. So let's dive into the presentation and talk about the economy and the recovery from the Great Recession. Starting kind of in 2007, really accelerating into 2008, and then also 2009, was one of the worst labor markets in history. You have to go back to the 1930s to see a recession or depression back then that was as significant. In roughly October, November of 2008, the economy lost 800,000 jobs. Now, to put that into perspective, the economy has to grow. We have to add about 150,000 jobs a month in the U.S. just to keep pace with the growth in population. Instead, we lost 800,000 jobs. So, almost 1 million jobs short of where we needed to be in order to sort of keep even with what we needed to be doing. Today, for the last probably something like 6-7 years, we've been adding about 200,000 jobs a month. Definitely some months lower than that, some months higher, but it's been about 200,000. So we've been adding more jobs a month than the economy needs to in order to stay pace. And that's one of the reasons why you've seen the unemployment rate drop, you've seen the underemployment rate drop, but there still are a lot of problems in a lot of sectors. I think it's very interesting and helpful to sort of break the job market into different sectors. This shows the significant difference between very small employers, those with, say, 1 to 19 employees, and the very largest, those with over 1,000 employees. You can see that on the left side, for every 100 employees that they had starting in the recession, then the lines move sort of, they dip down during the Great Recession, and then they are coming towards the right side up, which means that we're adding employees but if you look at like that green line, which represents employers with 500 to 999 employees, you can see that today they only have about 94 employees for every 100 that started in '08. So, for example, an employer that had 100 employees in 2008 today probably only has 94. So clearly they are still really feeling the effects of the Great Recession. They're in recovery. They're probably hiring people slowly, but they're not yet where they were 7 years ago. Now, contrast that with the very small employers that had, say, 1 to 19. They're almost 5% better than they were back in 2008. And you also see pretty good strength with the largest employers, that red line with 1,000 plus employees. Those are the companies that we primarily serve. So they're significantly better than they were, back in 2008. There's also a significant difference geographically. A college student, say, graduating with, let's say, a liberal arts degree in California or in Tennessee, Nevada, et cetera, the orange states, that college grad is going to feel significantly more pessimistic about their employment opportunities than the same kind of person with the same background, credentials, career goals, et cetera, who is graduating in, say, looking for a job in North Dakota, South Dakota, the dark green states. There's a significant difference geographically. Where you live really impacts the employment market. And then, of course, like even in a state like California, you see significant employment differences. If you're looking for a position in, say, Sacramento, the job market there is going to be quite a bit different than just a couple hours drive away in San Francisco. And different majors are going to have different kinds of employment opportunities. If you're a computer science major in San Francisco, the world is your oyster. If you're a computer science major in, say, Tennessee, with the equally strong credentials, it's going to be much harder for you to find a job. It also really depends upon the kind of education or how much education you have. You know, I hear politicians all the time talking about how it's not that important to go to college anymore, and they keep talking about sort of the exceptions to the rule, the Bill Gateses and the Steve Jobs who either didn't go to college or didn't graduate from college, and obviously they did just fine. And yeah, there are lots and lots of those sorts of people, but they are the exceptions. They are not the rule. If you look at the green line, that's going to show all young workers, young adults. And I don't remember exactly how the Census Bureau cuts that off, but it's probably something like 17 to 24-year-olds who are not in high school anymore. So they're part of the labor market. And you can see that the unemployment rate for young workers on average is about 13.5%. Now compare that to all workers, everybody of working age. That's the black line, and that is showing an unemployment rate of just below 8%. So the younger you are on average, the harder it is for you to be finding employment. Now, those who have just graduated from college, their unemployment rate is just below 6%. And those who graduated years ago, like, say, me, our unemployment rate is way down in the 4% range. So clearly, a college degree whether it's a 1-year, 2-year, 4-year, master's, PhD, whatever, makes it much more likely that you are going to find employment. So the job market in 2015, what we're seeing today is that about half of the students graduate with at least one internship. That's great. When I went to school back in 1867, internships were almost unknown. Very, very few students had any internships at all. If you had a job when you were in college, it was very, very likely that you were working in a retail environment as a cashier, a stock clerk, something like that, maybe working in a restaurant as a host or waiter. Now, one of the things that I'm happy to see is that about 61% of those internships are paid. There was a trend, especially during the Great Recession, of employers really trying to have these young adults subsidize the employer by the employer not paying the interns. And the employers would typically excuse that by saying, oh, well, these people, they need to get experience, and so they don't really need to get paid. But, really at the end of the day, what that means is that somebody who's in college at the beginning of their career, who has little to no money, who's desperate for education, is really being taken advantage of by the employer. I kind of feel like the employers are stealing from those young adults. They're stealing their labor. And I'm glad to see that a large majority now are getting paid. Really the only employers who can typically legally not pay their interns are government agencies and nonprofits. If you're a for-profit corporation, in almost all cases, your interns need to be paid. And just have a quick look at the Fair Labor Standards Act if you don't believe me. One of the things I'm disappointed about, sort of the flip side of that, is that only 24% of interns get an offer for permanent employment. That number should be about 75%. An internship is a failure, both for the intern and for the employer, if at the end of the internship, the employer does not offer the intern an offer for permanent employment. An internship is all about recruiting. I've heard it called the 3 R's of recruiting, or the internship is the 3 R's: recruiting, recruiting, recruiting. The goal for the employer and the goal for the student for an internship should be that student gets to kind of try out the employer, like a temp to perm kind of relationship, and the same thing in reverse. And at the end of the internship, both of them should like each other enough that the employer offers the student a permanent job offer. It doesn't mean the student needs to take it, but if there's not even a permanent offer or an offer for permanent employment 76% of the time, that's way too high. That indicates to me that the students and the employers are going into that internship without the expectation that that student is going to continue to work for the employer. Huge, huge missed opportunity. What we also see is that about 84% of college seniors are looking for a job prior to graduation. Well, if they're not getting job offers from their internship, that's why. Now that, again, it's a much higher number than what we would like to see, and also discouraging to us is that 35% of those seniors who are actively looking for a job have had 0 interviews. So they're sending out applications and they aren't getting any nibbles, not even an interview. That's really discouraging. And then also discouraging is that most of the students that even have interviews, so roughly the 65% of them who are actively seeking, that those interviews did not turn into offers. That is also discouraging. We certainly would like to see a high percentage of those who have applied and been interviewed had at least one job offer. If you've gone on 5 job interviews, we're not expecting that 4 or even all 5 of those are going to turn into job offers. But you'd think if somebody went on 5 job interviews that they would have at least one job offer. But we're just not seeing that. So there's definitely a big struggle still out there for college grads. And then also the common wisdom out there is that most college grads have a job upon graduation. We hear all the time from employers as we get kind of into May, oh, well, there's no point in advertising our job opportunities now because all of the students have graduated and they all have jobs. Well, this year, 86% of college graduates did not have a job when they graduated. Those percentages vary considerably when you further break it down. A lot more males than females have jobs upon graduation. The better your grade point average, the more likely it is that you're going to graduate with a job. And sounds kind of weird, but the whiter you are, the more likely it is that you're going to have a job upon graduation. When you look at the disparity between whites, 16% of whites or Caucasians have a job upon graduation, and only about half of that, 9%, for Native Americans. So, there's a huge disparity just simply based upon your genetics. There's also a huge disparity based upon the major. So not much of a surprise to most people, but tech, computer science, et cetera, those candidates, those recent grads are doing pretty well, or at least better than most of the other majors. But something that does surprise me is when I look and see that only 8% of engineers are graduating with a job. That's kind of surprising to me. Now, perhaps that's just a difference of the industry. Maybe that industry prefers to hire people who have already graduated. If so, okay. But that still means that 92% of engineering majors are graduating without a job. So what are some important factors for today's students? What do they really, really care about? A lot of employers sort of feel like that students want a lot of flex time. They want to be able to work from home. They want to be able to bring their dog to work. And, those sorts of things are important. But the number one factor, the most important factor to today's grads is salary. Money talks. And yet, 2/3 of grads today would at least consider working for the federal government. Now, the federal government is not known for paying high salaries, but the salaries that they do pay tend to be fair and tend to be very secure. And I think that's really where a lot of that salary is coming from. So today's grads have little to no interest in straight commission sales positions or in positions that pay very low but offer you the opportunity to get really great experience, like an unpaid or a lowly paid internship, or what used to be called an externship, an internship after graduation. Working remotely, at least part of the time, is something that is very important. And I think with the technology that exists today in almost all workplaces, there's really no reason that the vast majority of office workers have to come into the office and be in a cube, 8 hours a day, every day. They should be able to do at least some of their work from home. Some of the other things that I think a lot of employers think are really important, but just are way down the list. I mean, pet-friendly workplaces, a lot of employers really have lots of photos on their websites about, showing the dogs walking around and how the students have access to YouTube and Facebook, et cetera. And, yes, those things are important, but they're not nearly as important as having a secure job that pays you fairly, where the students have security. And I think the reason for that is that the students who are graduating today were in middle school or just kind of starting high school when their parents were experiencing the Great Recession. So they probably saw mom and dad and uncles and aunts and neighbors being laid off, people who worked really well for very good companies, and the Great Recession hit. And boom, they were unemployed. And they're probably seeing a lot of those people still really struggling, because even though they might now be employed, they might be employed only at a fraction of what they were making going into the recession. So today's students are looking at that, and that was very that recession hit during a very formative time, really important to them. Another thing that we see are sources of hire. Now, this is what some employers are starting to be much better at, is using data and analytics to drive their recruiting decisions. And one of the things that we hear from a lot of employers is how important their different sources of hire, where they're hiring people from. Most of the employers that are out there, for every 1,000 employers, probably only about 100 of them really are actually measuring where are they getting people, where are they hiring people from. There's an old adage that I know that half of my advertising works, I just don't know which half. And that's very, very true in the labor market. So Career Crossroads, which is a company owned by Jerry Crispin and Mark Mailer, annually surveys employers to see where are they getting hires from. And the number one source of hire almost every single year are referrals, where one employee refers a friend, a family member, some past colleague, whatever. And that's very, very important. Interestingly, the number two source of hire in 2013 can never actually be a source of hire. And that's a career site. That's the employer's own website. By definition, you can never, ever start your job search on an employer's career site. You're always going to come from somewhere else. Career Crossroads used to exclude that as a category, but so many employers incorrectly look at that as a source that they finally just started to rather than try to push that boulder uphill, they just started to include it. And then number three, which therefore should really be number two, are job boards. Niche job boards like College Recruiter, general job boards like LinkedIn, Indeed, Monster, Career Builder, etc. And then down in the fifth position, but when you exclude the career sites, you see college, and that's primarily going to be on-campus hiring, where the employer goes through career services and then sits in a little interview room for a day or two and interviews students. So how do students actually learn about jobs? Is it through those career services? Is it through the on-campus hiring? Generally, no. The number one way that they learn about jobs are through job match alert emails. College Recruiter has that. Virtually every job board out there has that. Our job match alert emails are intelligent. They learn. They look to see what jobs you click on, and then they send you more of those jobs. We also sprinkle in some jobs that might not be perfectly relevant to your search. So if you say that, hey, tell me every time there's a new computer science or a computer engineering job in San Francisco, we're going to send you all of those, but we're also going to send you some computer engineering jobs or software engineering jobs in Denver, in Miami. And we're also going to send you some retail jobs in San Francisco. And then we're going to watch which jobs you actually click on, which ones actually are of interest to you, because which ones you click on might be quite different than the ones that you said you were interested in. And if you're only clicking on jobs in San Francisco, but you're clicking on a wide variety of jobs, then we know that geography is actually what matters most to you. On the other hand, if you only click on the software engineering jobs, but you're clicking on those in San Francisco, and you're clicking on those in Denver, and you're clicking on those in Miami, then we know it's really software engineering. It's the job title. It's the actual kind of work that is most important to you, and geography is not all that important to you. We also see that the number two source of where candidates are learning about jobs are job boards. Again, just very consistent with the Career Crossroads survey. General and niche job boards like a College Recruiter are, at or near the top of the list. Number three, where do they find out, where do they get information about, is the career sites, the employer's website. And then way down the list are going to be social media sources like a Twitter. People talk about that a lot, not as much anymore. I think reality has set in. It was fairly easy to hire people off of Twitter back in, say, 08, 09, but a lot of that was because there were so many highly qualified people looking for work. You could tweet out a job, get a whole bunch of great applications in, and hire someone. Well, today, the employers have to try much harder in order to hire people. And so even when you add up all of the different social media sites together, not nearly as many people, recent grads and students, are finding jobs through social media as they are through job match alert emails or job boards. So what are some of the struggles that students are having? Well, the number one struggle that they say is the interview. And again, if we kind of look back or remember back to the previous part of this presentation, there was a huge number of students who were really having a hard time getting an interview, and then even when they got interviews, getting offers. So I think that's something that we can all focus a lot more on whether it's College Recruiter, whether it's Career Service Office website, whether it's employers, parents, friends, whatever, is helping students get to that interview and then be properly prepared for the interview. I think that there's a common misconception amongst a lot of job seekers that they just have to have a really good resume. And if they have a really good resume, everything will take care of itself. Well, the resume gets you in the door. Resume is the document that convinces an employer to interview you, and that's it. At that point, the interview really takes over. And if you flunk out in the interview, the best resume in the world is not going to get you a job offer. Close second, resume and cover letter prep. They're struggling with that. There's a ton of information online about how to write a resume. There are a ton of services. We have one that offer free resume critiques where you can upload your resume at College Recruiter or some other places as well, and a real human being will read through your resume and email you back within a few days with very specific recommendations as to how to improve that. We offer that for free to candidates using our site. It's still obviously a very big struggle, and it's one of the reasons why we offer it for free, because we know there's a big demand out there. Another struggle that students are having with is sort of the frustrations around applying for a job. They're very frustrated with how long it takes employers to get back to them, not understanding the interview process, the job descriptions that are vague, confusing, sometimes just inconsistent. And also they struggle with knowing whether to provide a cover letter or not, and what the cover letter should contain, if there should be a cover letter at all. I think all of that really boils down to the need for employers to do a much better job of communicating accurately and concisely what the process is, that when you apply to work for us, you will hear back within X number of days, and that this is the process moving forward. One of the companies that we've worked with for a long time that does an exceptionally good job at this is Enterprise Rent-A-Car. So if you're an employer and you want to sort of see what are some best practices out there, go and have a look at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and it is fantastic what they do. Another area, a struggle for candidates, for students, negotiation, 7%. It's actually lower than I thought initially, and then when I started to think about it, one of the reasons why it's probably not that much of a struggle for most students is that they probably aren't doing much negotiation. So they're just kind of like, well, I'm just going to take whatever offer I get. And in that case, there's really no negotiation. They should be negotiating, but it's just something that they just probably aren't looking at much. They're grateful for any offer. So who are the influencers that can help students with these struggles and help them find the right industry to go into, maybe what geographic area, how to prepare for those interviews, et cetera? Number one influencer for students, parents. In my generation, I can't think of a single one of my friends that I was growing up with that would have put their parents at the top of the list for who they should get help from when they're searching for a job. I think their teachers, the career service offices, et cetera, that they would have been much higher on the list than parents. But today's generation that's in college now, the millennials, I think, and it's a good thing, they really admire, trust their parents. And so parents that are out there that are listening to the call, help your kids, help your neighbors' kids. Good thing, faculty, teachers, that would certainly include professors, they're also highly valued. Friends, spouses, et cetera. Way down at number 5, the college career service offices. That's a real shame. They should be up near the top of the list. I think that more than anything else, that's indicative that the career service offices are woefully underfunded, woefully understaffed. There just aren't enough people with training working in those offices at the vast majority of schools. There are a small number of very well endowed schools that have excellent career service offices, very well staffed. Students can make appointments, go in, get really great career counseling, but that's just not the case at most of the schools in the country. So, Andrea, that wraps up the presentation. And do you have any questions?
I sure do, Steve, and thank you so much for just giving us an overview of where we are today. I know I took lots of notes, so great information. So my first question for you is I recently read that Ernst& Young is no longer recruiting at college campuses and now doesn't care about the majors and GPAs of the student it is interviewing. Is that true?
Well, it's yes and no, or actually more accurately, no and yes. Yes,
Okay.
they are definitely still interviewing at college campuses. There was an article that was just published with I think within the last week or so by the Guardian, a newspaper in the UK. It's kind of like the New York Times for the UK. And I found it to be fascinating that the UK offices of Ernst& Young or EY, as they're sort of changing their branding and becoming known as, they ran some or looked at the data to see for their current employees who are the best producers and where did they come from? What schools did they come from? What majors did they come from? What GPAs did they have? And surprisingly, what EY found in the UK was that it really didn't matter all that much which major that student had, which school they came from, what their GPA was. And so what they've done as a very, very elite employer, very progressive employer, is that they've followed the data. So the UK offices of EY this year are not going to interview only students or consider only students from certain majors, certain GPAs. That's really fantastic news for students in a lot of different majors. For example, if you're a liberal arts major, you can now interview with EY and know that you're going to be very seriously considered, that you do not have to have, say, a finance or accounting degree. That's awesome. Let's say you're a student and your GPA is, say, 2.5. I'm guessing that historically that would have been too low for EY to consider you. They sort of would have felt like you probably weren't going to be smart enough or hard enough worker or whatever as somebody with, say, a 3.5 GPA. Today, they're going to look at that and they're going to say, nope, you know what? That's just one of many factors. So that's really fantastic. But I have heard, and it's not accurate, that EY has stopped recruiting on college campuses. That there's nothing in the article and nothing that I've been able to find that indicates that. EY is still very proactively engaging with career services, with staff, faculty, students at schools that they can see that they've hired a lot of really great people from. That doesn't mean you have to go to one of the quote-unquote their schools in order to be considered, but they are definitely still going on campus. That's still a major part of their pipeline.
Thanks. So now another question is, most employers do not have the resources to wine and dine career services, professors, college administrators, or to spend days on campus interviewing potential interns. So what are some options that are available to them?
Yeah, we hear a lot from employers, especially newer ones or smaller ones, that they're frustrated with sort of they go on campus and nobody signs up for their interview. So they call up career services and career services says, hey, we're too busy. Well, a lot of times what's happening there is that the employer will kind of surprise career services, and it's October 14th, and they'll pick up the phone and they'll say, hey, we want to come on campus to interview 5 people and hire 2 of them. And it's just not realistic. For career services to really help you properly, they need to know who you are. They need to have some advance notice. So, if it's June or July, set up an appointment, go in, meet with the career service office director, and let her walk you through the process. She will know what you need to do in order to successfully hire students from her campus, and follow those instructions. It takes work. It takes time. Time, of course, is money. And for a lot of employers, they're looking for shortcuts. There aren't shortcuts. College recruiting is strategic. It's about recruiting the next generation of your company's leaders. It's not about just an impulse buy. You're not at the grocery store at the checkout and thinking about, do I buy a Snickers bar or not? You're hiring a future executive. So you need to invest the time necessary to do that properly. So some options. If it is mid-October and you need to hire some interns like yesterday, probably doing it on campus is going to be your successful path. Use a niche job board like a college recruiter, and there are others out there that are also very good, and advertise your job. There are a whole bunch of different ways to do that, and one of our account managers can certainly help you figure out which way is going to be the best for your organization. Look at doing some unconventional things. Maybe rent out a restaurant or a bar and kind of have an open house type of event. Where you invite students from multiple campuses, and you can invite them via email, Facebook, all different kinds of approaches to inviting them. Sources like LinkedIn are very good for being able to identify a relatively small number of people with very specific skills. So you can search by school, you can search by year of graduation, by major, and then you can message them through LinkedIn, what LinkedIn calls an in-mail. And ask them if they're interested in your opportunity. And certainly the folks at LinkedIn would be more than happy to help you as an employer figure out sort of how best to leverage their platform.
Great. Now, there's a debate within our company about whether we should ramp up our efforts to hire military veterans or continue to focus on hiring students and recent grads. Which do you think is a better way of recruiting our future leaders?
Yeah, and I'm assuming that you're sort of thinking about it from the perspective of an employer that would be watching the webinar.
Exactly.
And yeah, I don't look at military versus college hiring as being mutually exclusive. It's not two completely different things with no overlap whatsoever. There's definitely some parts of military recruiting that really just don't exist in the college recruiting world. So, for example, if you're a trucking company and you're looking to hire drivers, long haul drivers, the guys that drive across the country, CDL is the acronym for those types of folks. Much more likely that you're going to be able to find well qualified CDLs through military recruiting, because so many of our military veterans have received training and perhaps even their primary responsibility where we're driving, tanks, trucks, whatever. They're going to be exceptionally well qualified for those types of roles. You don't see too many college students and recent grads going into that profession. On the other hand, you don't see too many people coming out of the military with, let's say, a teaching certificate or degree. There are some that you'd be able to find, but just not very many. And then there's this huge overlap where probably 80% of veterans have skills that are the same or comparable to what people go to school for. And maybe they've acquired those skills in the military. It might be technical skills, or maybe they've exited the military, they've been discharged, and they've gone to college on the GI Bill, and now they're in school or they're graduating. So there's this huge intersection. Something like 1 million veterans are currently enrolled at U.S. college campuses. So I look at that as being an incredible sweet spot, that these people are military veterans, and so they typically have excellent organizational skills, motivation. They're the kinds of people who typically are passionate about their work, really hard workers, very often just naturally born leaders, or they've been trained to be leaders, and yet they also have the higher education of being a college student. And I think that's one area that we're going to see more growth in. There are some organizations out there that have separate military recruiting departments and college recruiting departments. And one change that I'm seeing is that those two departments are more and more becoming intertwined. And so when the college team is going on campus, they're very often specifically targeting military veterans. And I think that's a wonderful thing.
Great. Now, another question that was submitted is this. My campus used to have 5,000 students, but we've grown to 15,000 over the past 10 years. I'm still the only paid staff person in the career service office, although I do have a few students who work part-time here. How do I get the budget to hire people so that we can actually have time to provide career counseling services to the students?
Yeah, and I think that this is a question that we had when we were at the NACE conference in Anaheim this past June. One of the career service office people came up, and his story was very, very similar to this. First of all, it's awesome that your school is growing. That they've gone from, what was it, 5 to 15,000. Not so awesome that his budget hasn't grown, at least by 300%, just to kind of keep up with the growth in the number of students. So, one thing is that I think, like the career counselor was saying, they really need to make the business case for why they should get increased budgets. And to me, one thing that career services I think does not look at enough when they're trying to get increased budgets is the impact that they have on donations to the school by the alums. So, if you're a student and you graduate and you are unemployed or underemployed upon graduation, you're probably not going to look at your school very favorably. So, when you get the letters and the phone calls asking you for donations, A, you're not going to have the money to do it, and B, you're not feeling so great about your alma mater. You're probably not going to be feeling very generous about donating some of your hard-earned money to a school that you feel let you down. On the other hand, if you had a career service office that had the resources and the drive, the passion, the knowledge, et cetera, and really helped you find a great job upon graduation, and then perhaps even stayed in touch with you over the years to see how else they can help you as you transition from one role within a company to another, or even from one company to another company, if they helped you not just when you were graduating, but also in the years after that, you're going to feel a very strong tie to that school. They were good for you, loyal to you. You want to be good to them and loyal to them. And so I think career services should be working much more closely with the alumni and the fundraising offices and trying to tie in the performance of career services to donations by future students. And the data really should be there. You should be able to look at a student or the average student who did not get a job through career services, perhaps didn't even register with career services, but basically look at the group of students at career services that did not help and look at what their donations were per year after graduation, and then compare that to the students who did get help from career services, who did get a job, say through on-campus recruiting or in some other way that career services helped, and look at what their average donations were per year. I think you're going to see a stark difference. The students who got jobs through career services are going to be donating far more money than the students who didn't. And that money, a portion of that, should flow back to career services to reward them for the work that they were doing and to help them help more of their upcoming grads.
Great, great. So my last question, Stephen, is I keep hearing from politicians that college education is a waste of money. Is it?
Well, I'll call the BS on that one. Clearly not. One of the early slides in the presentation showed the graph with like the unemployment rate for all young adults versus those that have some college education versus those who recently graduated versus those who graduated years ago. And it's clear when you look at all young adults versus those who graduated from college, the ones who graduated from college, I think, were like 2 to 3 times more likely to be employed, their unemployment rate was 2 to 3 times smaller than just the average young adult. So the people who are saying that college is not important, I always find it to be interesting, hypocritical on their end, because almost all of them not only have a 4-year degree, but a lot of them also have a higher education degree, like let's say a law degree, and they used that education to help them get into the role that they're in, and yet now they're trying to deny the same kind of education to people who are, say, 20, 30, 40 years younger. I think what it is it's these politicians are trying to save money. They're trying to say, you know what, we don't have to support higher education. We shouldn't be subsidizing schools. We shouldn't be making higher education affordable for everyone. It doesn't directly benefit the politician or their constituents. And so therefore we should just, not be spending money in that area. I think that is incredibly short-sighted. We are clearly in an information age. And if we can't be educating our youth, then we as a country are without a question going to be left behind. We should be investing a lot more money in education and making it a lot more affordable for today's young adults rather than the opposite.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much, Stephen, for joining us today, and thank you for attending this College Recruiter webinar. The subject of today's discussion was on the 2015 employment market for recent grads and students. My name is Andrea McEwen Henderson, and I was your host today. I am one of the national account managers with College Recruiter. I have a dozen years of experience in helping large and small employers reach recent college graduates and students. My primary responsibilities are facilitating our webinars, moderating the discussions at our college recruiting bootcamp conferences, as well as working with small to mid-sized employers on their entry-level hiring needs. College Recruiter is the highest traffic college job board with 150,000 unique monthly visitors. We help employers reach recent graduates and students of 1-, 2-, and 4-year colleges and graduate schools. We have permission to deliver emails on behalf of our employer clients to 7 million recent graduates and 10 million students, and can target them by major, school, year of graduation, diversity, and more. Our other solutions for employers include job postings, targeted mobile banner ads, targeted display ads, virtual career fairs, and custom research projects. For more information about College Recruiter, you can reach us at www.collegerecruiter.com/952-848-2211. Today's guest was Stephen Rothberg, President of College Recruiter. Thank you for joining us today.